Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 15 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series. Tonight here for round number 2 of the season, or if you're keeping track of the overall 2024 season, this would be round number 14. But tonight we are here in the lovely Long Pond, Pennsylvania for the Pocono 125, the first of two Pocono 125s here this season. And I'll tell you what, this track's a little bit interesting. If you look over at our track facts here, it more or less looks exactly the same as last week's race over at Dover did. Both tracks opened up back in 1969. Both times, or both tracks, are at their second visit by the ASRC Oval Series, so this track is a little bit different as the Road Series has come here a couple of times on its various infield road course layouts. Both races were previously won by Garrett Hess, and on top of that, both races in 2003, of course, recreating the 2003 racing season here in the ASRC Oval Series, but both races were run by Ryan Newman back to back in the real world. I'll tell you what, though, this racetrack could not be any more different than Dover was last week when it comes to layout, coming in at 2.5 miles in length or 4 kilometers for those of you using the metric system. Of course, it's a triangle, not an oval. That much is pretty obvious by the track map up there. And it's a bit of an interesting one. Every corner is a different banking. Every straightaway is a different length, with the most steep corner being 14 degrees, then 8 degrees and 6 degrees respectively, which really is not all that much considering the corners back at Dover were at a whole 24. There's going to be 50 laps here. The distance tonight bound to be an interesting race here this evening. But as the pace car starts rolling and drivers make their way down onto the starting grid, how about we take a look down at how our starting lineup will be looking here this evening. Starting out on the pole here tonight in the number 444 Harley Davidson entry, it's going to be none other than Mr. Mark Royce. Followed to his outside, though, one half of the SM Racing Products founding crew. That's going to be none other than Mr. Garrett Streets out of Topeka, Kansas. Back in position number 3, going to be the runner-up from last week's race at Dover. It's going to be our one Canadian driver here this evening, none other than Mr. Brandon Feeney. Back and forth in the number 93 ASRC entry, that'll be none other than League Administrator Jason Gardner, all off position at number 4. With Joshua Rudolph in the 188 machine rolling off back in position number 5, driver out of Medford, Wisconsin. Back in 6 going to be the Brandit number 45 of Mark Kluge, followed by the CZ Robotics number 24 of Corey Logan, back in 7th, driver out of Noonan, Georgia. Back in 8th, that's going to be the Dirty Mo Radio number 14 of Nico Morelli, followed by the Dirt TV driver of Johnny Bell, back in position number 9. And then rounding out the tail end of this 10-car field, it's going to be none other than the unsponsored number 78 of Mr. Derek Murphy. That is how things are going to be shaken out here for the Pocono 125. Of course, 2.5 miles. The math works out to 50 laps here this evening, but don't be fooled. This will not be a short race because these are going to be some very lengthy laps here this evening. This is going to be a test of endurance, a test of patience here in these drivers, and I feel like a lot of things are going to come down to tire saving, fuel strategy, and overall quality of the pit stops here this evening, because I think these 10 cars will be getting decently spread out if we get into a green flag run here tonight. That said, though, the iRacing.com pace car is off. We're getting ready to go green for the first time here at Pocono in Season 15. Green flag up in the air here at Pocono. So far, so good. Side by side for the race lead across the line. Both lines getting really good starts coming to this initial green flag, but it's going to be Garrett Streets that has the advantage going down into turn 1. Royce just behind in that bright orange machine, drifting up the racetrack a little bit up in front of Jason Gardner. We have a car off track. That is Joshua Rudolph down there in the 188 that went off the speedway just a little bit. He still got it pointed in the right direction, though. Everyone else still digging it out up here for the front. Side by side for Mark Royce and Brandon Feeney. Side by side further behind for Corey Logan and Jason Gardner. Looking like right now the low line is the place to be. These drivers are making moves up there. As Corey Logan setting it down low. Made the move on Jason Gardner in the previous corner. Almost thinking about making the move on Mr. Royce there coming out of turn number 3, but not quite close enough to make it happen. Just behind, side by side for Nico Morelli and Mark Kluge. Kluge up on the high line, Morelli down on the bottom in that number 14 machine. And as Morelli clears him, he's going to file back up to the top of the track as well. Now single file heading down into turn number 1. And now we start to see drivers get ready to start trying to settle into a rhythm here. Up at the front, Garrett Streets is losing the lead just a little bit here over Feeney and Royce. Both of them are starting to catch up to him slowly but surely here. Call it about 2 or 3 car lengths for the race lead, and then Mark Royce is right on Feeney's bumper waiting for an opportunity to capitalize here. Of course, coming into tonight's event, oh, a bit of a slide there coming out of 3 for both Royce and Feeney. Feeney, of course, was the runner-up last week at Dover. Streets finished at the tail end of the field back in 10th at Dover, and then Mark Royce rounded out position number 6 last week. So all 3 of these drivers up in the front either weren't present or didn't quite have the finishes they were hoping for. Of course, Feeney was trying that alternate fuel strategy for pretty much all of the race last week. Might have been able to make it work if it weren't for Benjamin Harsty. Now Feeney to the lead side by side with Streets, and he has already cleared him just like that. I think Streets might have gotten a little bit loose off the corner there, and that's what allowed Feeney to get around him, but he's not out of this battle quite yet. Now Streets is on the bottom of the speedway, trying to make the move work coming out of turn number 3. Not quite going to be able to do it though. Now heading down the front straightaway, and it's single filed out once again, but I'd imagine Streets probably going to try and make a move into turn 2 or 3 here. He's, oh, never mind, getting a little bit loose. So is Feeney, who put an oil slick on the track there, race fans. Both of our race leaders. Big time swirly coming out of turn 1. That's going to allow Royce to start to catch back up to this battle for the lead here as we see Streets go down low to try and make the pass. Feeney goes down low as well. Royce follows down to the bottom of the speedway as well, and he stays down there. Not quite enough speed out of the corner to try and make the move on the 15 though. Still nose to tail for really pretty much our top 5 here. Corey Logan, Jason Gardner, both all equally viable in this battle as well. Again, more getting loose off the corner. That time it's going to be Gardner getting a little bit swirly coming out of turn number 3. So it looks like this racetrack certainly is treacherous here today. Nobody has lost it yet, but definitely some very frightening slides to see here coming through the corners. Coming out of turn number 1 this time, it looks like everyone's a-okay. Nothing too sketchy going on there. And still all the drama is this battle for the race lead. Streets, Royce, and Brandon Feeney. And now we see Royce making the move here on Streets, or at least attempting to, heading down into turn number 3. But still not quite close enough to make it happen though. Right on the heels of our race leader, and Feeney is going to get loose coming out of the corner. He's going to nearly go down into the pit lane attenuator wall. That is going to cost him the race lead. Now he finds himself back in 3rd. Brandon Feeney back in 4th. Jason Gardner back in 5th. Both closing in on this driver as well. Logan having it down to about 0.2 of a second here. But as the gap between these 2 drivers is also 0.2 of a second for our race lead. 0.2 of a second further back for Nico Morelli on the heels of Jason Gardner. And then look at it again. 0.2 of a second between Kluge, Bell, and Murphy. So even as we single file out around the speedway, drivers are still having battles and basically broken into 3 respective groups here, all with about, call it about 1.5 seconds between each of the groups. Rudolph looking to potentially make a move on the high line here on Derek Murphy. Not quite able to make it happen, though. Currently running back in the 10th position. Of course, had that little bit of a scare on lap 1. Ended up down on the infield grass. No damage, but that is what put him at the tail end of the field. Now trying to work his way back up to Derek Murphy and Johnny Bell. Side by side for the race lead, and Royce is now loose out of the corner. So is Jason Gardner. Gardner both just as loose as Royce was, and that's actually not going to cost either driver position, I don't think. Again, that's just going to show how treacherous this speedway apparently is being here tonight, race fans. Everyone is getting squirrely all over the place. Derek Murphy hard into the outside wall. He's going to lose the spot on Joshua Rudolph and lose about 2 seconds over the rest of the field there as well. Not the way Murphy wanted his evening to go, but he's not out of this thing yet, and only looks like a very marginal amount of damage on the right front. So not out of the battle yet, but a little bit swirly coming out of 3 as well. It looks like that 78 machine might be having a little bit more handling issues than are readily apparent here. Is already now down to 2.5 seconds behind the rest of the field in that 78 machine. A little bit further up, Corey Logan getting some pressure from behind from Nico Morelli. Late joiner in that number 14 machine. Came in right when qualifying got started, so no practice, at least in the pre-race practice lobby under the bell of that number 14 machine, but it certainly seems like he has some solid speed here, getting around that number 24 machine for the 4th position here. Of course, Corey right on his heels, so is Jason Gardner, who is trying to rebound from that slide out of the corner, that shared slide together with Brandon Feeney. Right now, Feeney running back in the 3rd position where he qualified. Jason Gardner running 2 down from his qualifying position right now, and we are once again side by side, just barely for the race lead. It looks like Royce might have backed out of the corner there just a little bit in that 44 machine. But hot on the heels for Garrett Streets for the race lead. And both of them have a pretty solid lead over the rest of the field now. Called about 1 1/3 seconds over Brandon Feeney. Of course, Feeney has another 1.5 seconds over the rest of the field as well. Royce is going to pull up alongside that 15 machine, though. He's going to go for the move down into turn number 3. But he's not quite clear of Streets yet. There he is now. He managed, oh, maybe not. Still not clear. It looked for a second like Streets was going to lose the car there, but no. Side by side across the start-finish line, Royce still has the advantage here, just a little bit heading down into turn number 1. But still, Streets manages to hang on the higher line. Royce is just not able to clear that 15 machine. Let's take a top-down view at this battle, get a better view of where these drivers are at here on the speedway. Streets now up to a little bit of a better advantage over Royce right now. But we've seen these two drivers passing it back and forth lap after lap here, so I don't think Streets exactly has room to breathe quite yet. Royce getting it down to about a 1/10 of a second there, but backing off just a little bit, heading down into the corner. Closes it back up on corner exit though, and we might see a move here going into turn number 1. Side by side across the line again. Royce now on the bottom, heading down into turn number 1. And sure enough, almost clears them, but not quite. Streets just keeps finding that little bit of extra speed in the center of the corner to stay with Royce for the race lead. But he's going to scrape against the outside wall. That is going to be costly here as Royce now pulls it up to a 0.3 of a second lead here. A little bit further back here, another battle going on the speedway. Mark Kluge duking it out here with Jason Gardner. This is the battle for the 6th position here that Gardner is holding right now, and he's going to scrape against the wall as well. That's going to allow Bell to get around. That's going to allow Kluge to get around. For a second there, it looked like Rudolph might have thought about sending it in 3 wide, but he backed out of it. But all 3 of those drivers are going to clear that number 93, and there's a pit lane attenuator there, hanging on to it Nico Morelli, that was very scary. I think he probably just got loose off the corner, same as we've seen a couple other drivers have here this evening. But that certainly looked like the number 14 machine heading straight for the pit lane attenuator. Now I see up on the high line there, that number 188 machine of Joshua Rudolph trying to make the high line work. Not quite successful as it looked like he was going to be there. Still falling behind Kluge and Bell here. Now they're starting to get a little bit more equidistant from each other, so still anyone's race here. Of course, still in the early goings of this thing as well. Currently only 11 laps officially completed here, and this is a 50 lap long event, so still a pretty long way left to go here tonight. Still a pit stop in the books that we got to wait for. Right now, this battle between Bell and Kluge is the closest battle on the speedway. Kluge closing up right to the back bumper of Bell, but it looks like not going to try and make a move here into the corner. Taking a look down here at our battle box going on. All four of these drivers within a second of each other. And it looks like Rudolph and Gardner are both slowly starting to close in on this lead battle between Bell and Kluge for the 6th position. Well, right now it's looking like lap times 57.73 was the last lap time for Johnny Bell, 57.82 for Mark Kluge, as Kluge managed to make the move on Bell heading down into the corner side by side. Kluge is going to have the advantage here just a little bit, but he is not going to come up to try and secure that position. Now he does. He has cleared Johnny Bell just behind Jason Gardner, closing in on Joshua Rudolph here, heading down into turn number 1. But not close enough to try and attempt a move there. But certainly all four of these drivers all still in contention for the 6th position. They are starting to fall back from the top 5 though. About a second and a half is the gap between Kluge and Logan right now. As we have two cars slow on the speedway. That is Morelli and Corey Logan. Looks like potentially both those drivers maybe had a little bit of a mix-up there. Take a quick look back, see if we can't see what all happened here right quick. Take a look down here at Corey Logan in the CZ Robotics entry. Might have gone a little bit too far back here, but it's going to be the 24 and the 14 that had that incident there. And those should have been coming out of turn number 1, heading down onto the backstretch. Potentially it might have been just both of them getting loose on corner exit like we have seen time and time again. Maybe not, though. We might have jumped a little bit too far back in the footage. Let's fast forward here a little bit, see if we can't figure this out a little bit better. Oh no, sure enough, Morelli up into the outside wall, and then they both make contact there, and that's going to be what slows the two of them down. Miraculous, both of them managed to keep their cars pointed in the right direction, and no caution flag is going to fly. Brandon Feeney is going to be the driver to make the call to come down pit lane. Looks like he is maybe trying to reverse his luck from last week's event at Dover. Of course, continuing to potentially be on the alternate strategy here unless we see the rest of the field come down in the next lap or two. But it looks like Feeney potentially will be trying a 2-stopper here, where other drivers may be trying to go for 1-stop here tonight. But sure enough, Feeney is going to head back out on the speedway, and he is still the only driver that has made the call to come down pit lane. Here's the battle for the race lead, though. Mark Royce, Garrett Streets coming out of turn number 3. A little bit of a wiggle for both of them. But still both electing to stay out, so Feeney is the only driver that has come down so far here in tonight's event. And we might be about to fix that. There's a driver hard in the outside wall there. I think that was Nico Morelli. Might have been Mark Kluge. Sure enough, it was Mark Kluge in that 45 machine again. Another hard impact there coming out of corner exit. I think we're going to see a little bit of the same incident that we saw for Nico Morelli earlier on. Let's take a moment. Let's jump back here, see if we can't see what all went down there. It looked like it was Mark Kluge that had that issue, and sure enough, just kind of a sudden snap to the right. That might have been some sort of mechanical failure there. I'm not quite sure what that was. But still, all drivers pointed in the right direction, and it looks like Kluge is keeping the car relatively pointed or in the right way for the most part, so I'm not quite sure what that was there. Up at the front, the battle for the race lead is still raging on here between Mark Royce and Garrett Streets. We did have a couple more takers down on pit lane. Jason Gardner and Joshua Rudolph both electing to come down here side by side for the race lead, though. Streets on the bottom, Royce up high. Royce gets loose again, coming out of turn number 1. It's not giving enough for Streets to make the move, but he is right on the bumper of that 44 machine. Now heading down into turn number 2. Looks like Garrett Streets having a little bit of connection issues here this evening. That might be a little bit detrimental to him here. But right now, Royce managing to hang on to the lead laps, or the race lead, excuse me. So both these drivers, oh, Royce getting a little bit loose there again. It looks like he is going to be electing to bring it down to pit lane here. That leaves Garrett Street staying out. Johnny Bell, Corey Logan, Nico Morelli have all yet to pit. Looks like Corey Logan coming down as well. And so does Derek Murphy. So that leaves just Garrett Streets, Johnny Bell, and Nico Morelli all electing to stay out on the speedway right now. How is Mark Royce doing here? I imagine we're going to see the same general pit stop that we see for all these drivers. 4 tires and fuel, as we see that 24 machine overdrive the pit box just a little bit there. That's going to be a bit costly for time, but sure enough, 4 tires and fuel seems to be the call all the way around here. And now Mark Royce going to make his way back out onto the speedway. A mostly clear track around him. And now the rest of the drivers who pitted are starting to work their way back out here as well. Murphy coming out as Jason Gardner comes in. Corey Logan coming out of pit lane here as well. Now our race leader Garrett Streets is coming in. That leaves just Johnny Bell and Nico Morelli that have not yet pitted. And sure enough, Nico is going to come down here as well. So that leaves just Johnny Bell staying out on the speedway. So Johnny will most likely pick up a bonus point for leading a lap here. The question is, did Bell pass Morelli before crossing the start-finish line? If not, he'll have to stay out another lap just to guarantee that he gets that point. Last week, unfortunately, Johnny not able to make it out to the race. But overall, in the 2024 championship, Johnny is not doing all that bad. He's running part-time here in the Oval Series and currently standing in 12th in the points right now, right in front of Daniel Sparks and Daniel Wiles, just behind Michael Moultrie and Bryson Hicksenbog. And sure enough, now Johnny Bell going to be coming down onto pit lane. That will make all cars on the field having officially pitted. We do have a driver off the speedway, though. That is the 14 of Nico Morelli. Morelli was just off the track there, and there is damage on both of the front tires here. No caution flag flying, but it looks like that's the most damage we've seen on a car so far here today. So let's take a real quick look back and try and see what the deal was there. Already looking like he had a wheel down the grass and the car just snaps on him. A bit of airtime there as well. Might have been the splitter hitting the ground, so that is going to be some extra damage on there as well. That is going to really be hurting Morelli's evening, and of course he's actually going to be coming back down pit lane now. Not sure if race control gave him the meatball flag or not, but he is definitely not happy with how that car is performing. So he's going to bring it back down. That will be knocking him down to presumably the 9th position, but Jason Gardner has been down on pit lane for over 2 minutes now, nearly 2.5 minutes on pit lane. So something is broken under that number 93 machine, because that is not a regularly scheduled pit stop. How about up here at the front? Mark Royce battling out with Brandon Feeney. Two alternate pit strategies here going on. Feeney pitted 3 laps before Royce did, so about 7.5 miles of difference on tire wear here. And it's looking like Feeney... No, Feeney is still actually gaining on Royce. I thought perhaps Feeney was just going to hand him the position and save for the rest of the race, try and make some ground up in the later half. But no, Feeney is pushing here. He is wanting to get involved in this battle for the race lead here in that 38 machine. Right now, half a second divides the two of them, so I could be eating my words right now because that gap went from 0.2 of a second to now 0.6 mighty quickly, and I didn't really see any mistakes out of Feeney's part there. It didn't seem like he got loose or had any sort of trouble. Sure enough, that gap is now up to just about a second between the two of them, though. Now mostly spread out all around the field. Jason Gardner still down on pit lane. Just shy of 4 minutes of work being done on that car now. Everyone else is out on the track. Morelli is being scored a lap down now from that damage that he had to get repaired. But otherwise, everything has been a relatively calm and incident-free event for all of these drivers. Now the gap for the race lead up to 1.5 seconds, so it definitely has started to spread out here just a little bit. Okay, look down here at the track map, you can see how relatively spread out it has gotten throughout the field. The closest battle is over 1.5 seconds between the two cars right now, and that is actually between Feeney and Streets. About 1.6 seconds between the two of them. So how about we head down, go on board with our current race leader of Mr. Mark Royce, and get a few minutes to see what it's like on board these powerful Gen 4 racing machines. So now officially halfway through tonight's event here this evening. That was Mark Kluge we just saw getting put a lap down by our race leader of Mr. Mark Royce. Battle going on the speedway further back though. This is between Corey Logan and Joshua Rudolph. Jason Gardner back out on the speedway in the orange and white machine, but currently being scored 6 laps down after nearly 5.5 minutes of repairs having to be done to that number 93, which, I mean, when it comes to car repairs, realistically, 5.5 minutes ain't all that bad. Tell me the last time you took your car to the mechanic and they had it ready to go in 5.5 minutes. Fortunately, though, in the context of the racing world, that is pretty detrimental to you, as Corey pulling up alongside the 188 machine of Joshua Rudolph, but getting just a little bit loose there. Still trying to keep it alongside, keep that battle going. And he is going to be able to do it. No wiggles coming out of turn number 3 this time around. Still going to be side by side between these two drivers across the line, as Jason Gardner sitting just behind waiting for the perfect opportunity to potentially get around these cars. Nothing else, get a little bit of full throttle time underneath them, of course, on some newer tires than these drivers, courtesy of that pit stop. But it's still side by side between Logan and Rudolph here. Neck and neck between the two drivers, battling it out for the 4th position. Corey put it back on lap 18, Rudolph back on 16, so Corey has very slightly newer tires than Rudolph does by about 5 miles between the two of them. We'll see how the lap times shake up when they cross the line here. And as we head across the line, it's going to be a 58.12 for Logan, a 58.55 for Rudolph. So Corey does have a little bit of a speed advantage over Rudolph, at least last time by, but we've seen how loose these drivers can get, so definitely not down and out for Joshua Rudolph quite yet here. That said, the gap has grown to about 0.6 of a second between the two of them now. And the further it grows, the harder it's going to be for Rudolph to make back up. I say that, and Corey has a little bit of a wiggle, and that gap closes back up to less than 0.2 of a second, just like that. Brandon Feeney coming back down onto pit lane here with 20 laps to go. Going to be the first pitter for the first time, going to be the first pitter for the second time as well. A little bit of a wiggle there for Gardner just behind, and he's going to pull it side by side with Rudolph. And gonna go ahead and head around. Again, that pass is not for position with Jason Gardner and Joshua Rudolph. With Brandon Feeney down on pit lane, though, that will cycle him back down to the 7th position, potentially even 8th, depending on where he comes back out on the speedway. However, of course, these are 55-second laps. Pit stops, including just the time entering, exiting, are about 42 to 43 seconds. So if Feeney times it right, he won't be going a lap down. And sure enough, looks like he's back out on the track. Does have about 7 seconds to play with over the race leader. So they're looking down at the battle for 3rd since Feeney pitted. Gardner in the white and orange ASRC entry, not a battle for position. He is a lapped car here, but these other two are duking it out. Now about 0.3 of a second between the two of them. You can see Bell in the background. Bell being scored about 3 seconds behind, but he is running in 5th right now. So should these two get slowed down enough, he will be involved in this battle for position as well. Now that Gardner has cleared the two of them, Rudolph might be in the clear to catch up to Logan and start battling it out with them. Because Gardner, of course, is on 6-lap newer tires than these other drivers. And a little bit of a wiggle out of the corner for Logan. That's going to allow Rudolph to get right on the bumper there. And it looks like our race leader, Mark Royce, is going to be coming down onto pit lane now. So that will have Garrett Streets cycling back out as our race leader once again. And Corey making a judgment call. Corey going to be coming down onto pit lane as well. A little bit of wheel lock, but I think they're a-okay. So that'll cycle out to Garrett Streets being our new race leader. Streets right now being scored 6th in the overall 2024 championship. Does have 1 win to his name, and that was back, I believe. Let's see here. That win was not where I thought it would be. I know how to do math, I swear, race fans. He has a win. He has won this season. I'm not 100% certain what track it was at, because it was a little bit in the early goings of it, but he did take home a race win here. And now leading the way. Of course, Garrett Streets is a former league champion here in ASRC as well. Took home the championship a couple of seasons ago back in the ARCA car. And then the next season, the other Garrett Hess, took home the championship. So both Garretts have a championship here in the league. Garrett Hess running very sparsely here this season. But we do occasionally see an appearance from the number 400 Everfrost driver out here. Street's now going to be making the call to come down pit lane, and little bit of a squirrely entrance to pit lane, but an entrance to pit lane nonetheless. It'll count, I reckon. I'll now cycle Johnny Bell out as the race leader, and it won't be enough for him to get the bonus point right now, but I think he already got it anyway, so if so, he doesn't have to worry about it. But that'll be Johnny Bell being scored as our new race leader, Derek Murphy, back in 2nd. And that will leave the 2 of them along with Mark Kluge as the last of the drivers that still need to come down again. Of course, Johnny right now, I mentioned it a little bit ago, right now running in 12th in the overall championship, running part-time. 1 top 10 finish to his name. Been a bit of a quiet season for this driver, but still plenty of opportunities left both in Season 15 and in the 2024 championship to make some noise in that 27 machine. As we have a driver off the track, that is Nico Morelli. Nico, that is not the racing surface. But, you know, the spirit is there, I reckon. And going to stay out, so not coming back down pit lane this time. Morelli will elect to stay out here. Let's take a quick look back, see if we can't see what prompted the off-track moment for him. And another big spin on corner exit. It looks like that is... Ooh, big airtime for that 14 machine as well. Wow, he is hitting some sick jumps here tonight. Unfortunately, we don't have any bonus points for most airtime, but I'll tell you what, I think Morelli would probably be the driver to pick it up. That is going to bump him back down to 9th as the first driver a lap down for the time being. With 15 laps left to go, unless we have multiple late race cautions, it's going to be very difficult for Morelli to make that ground back up. Right now, though, Johnny Bell still the race leader. That orange car you see just behind is going to cycle back around to the race lead once Johnny Bell pits, or provided that the gap get closed up. Looks like last time by, Mark Royce was 2 seconds faster than Johnny Bell, a 58.4 against a 56.2. So Royce, in theory, should be closing this gap up here pretty quickly. Turn off just like that down to a 4.2 second gap. So Royce is making some big gains here. And as we bring the track map back up, you can see the 27 is the one we currently have highlighted in green. That's Johnny Bell. 44 is closing the gap in 2nd right now. otherwise decently spread out all around the track. And just about everyone has gotten their final pit stop done with the exception of Johnny Bell and maybe Mark Kluge. So how they're running right now might be roughly where they finish, provided nobody makes any serious mistakes with their tire wear here in these final 13 laps. The gap now down to 3 seconds between Bell and Royce. Now make that 2.8. Sure enough, Royce is really quickly gaining now. I don't think Bell is going to be able to hold him off for another 13 laps. Make that 12 as we get ready to cross the line. Mark Kluge comes down to pit lane, so that leaves Johnny Bell as the last driver on the speedway that still needs to pit here tonight. And I'd imagine we're going to see him do it right around when Royce gets ready to pass him. If I had to guess, that is probably where we're going to be seeing it here. And now down to 2 seconds, the difference between this battle. Jason Gardner is off the speedway just in front of these two drivers, though. Brings it back up on the track, has it pointed in the right direction. No harm, no foul for the driver of that number 93 machine, and sure enough, Mark Kluge now down to a 1.6 second gap. Or excuse me, Mark Royce down to a 1.6 second gap. Now make that a 9/10 of a second gap. He is gaining incredibly quickly here on this 27 machine. I would imagine we're going to end up seeing Johnny pit this time by, if I had to guess. No, Johnny elects to stay out. He might be trying to stay to the end and just see where that gets him on track position. Sure enough, he is not going to be able to defend from Mark Royce for the race lead here with, again, a full 2 second lap disparity between these two drivers. Just like that, Mark Royce, once again, our new race leader here this evening at the Pocono Raceway. And getting ready to be 10 to go here this evening. And right now, this battle for the lead is the closest battle on the speedway. Now the big question is turned from how long is Johnny Bell going to stay out, pretty much. Because sure, I don't know if he's going to be able to save all the way for another 10 laps. But sure enough, he likes to stay out another lap, and we get the double high five from our flagman. Gonna be 10 to go here at Pocono. Make that 12. That's not how math works. Never mind. We're almost there. We're almost at the finish. That would be 25 miles to go, not 12.5. It's been a long week, race fans. And it's always great to cap it off with some lovely Oval Series racing. And of course, got to give a big thanks to our friends over at SM Racing Products for sponsoring the league, helping put on these shows we have here every night. With 10 laps left to go, Mark Royce seems pretty uncontested right now when it comes to the race lead. Now he's catching up to Jason Gardner, potentially looking to put that 93 machine another lap down here this evening. And sure enough, he's actually just going to bring it back down pit lane. So will Johnny Bell. Johnny Bell will go ahead and pit this time. So that officially marks every driver on the speedway that needs to pit having had pit now. And that's going to bump Garrett Streets in that 15 machine up to the second position. I'm not quite sure what his plan is going to be to make up that 9.8 second deficit for the race lead here. That is about half a straightaway between the two of them right now. Johnny now falling back to 5th. I'd imagine we're probably going to see him fall back to 6th or so here. Sure enough, falls back to 6th. Might even be about to fall back to 7th. He's still trying to get up to speed, and sure enough, there goes Derek Murphy. So Johnny Bell is going to be the last driver on the lead lap as it stands now. The question is, just how helpful will 6-lap newer tires than Derek Murphy be for him? And looks like 8-lap newer tires than Joshua Rudolph, 9-lap newer tires than Corey Logan, 10 lap newer tires than Brandon Feeney. So it's possible that we'll see Johnny eke out some late race speed here once he gets those tires up to temp and still finish better than a 7th position. But that's still a whole lot of what ifs for these drivers to play with. Speaking of here, the battle between Murphy and Bell actually is the closest on the speedway now. Call it about 0.8 of a second between the two of them, and Johnny Bell is closing here. The gap is shrinking both between Rudolph and Murphy and Bell. This battle might be about to start heating up here, race fans. A little bit of a wiggle out of the corner for Murphy, but he is still gaining on Rudolph here with 7 laps left to go. Everyone just trying to make anything happen with whatever they have left on these race cars, as we have a little bit of a wiggle for Rudolph out of the corner now. I think these tires really are starting to get used up pretty badly here this evening. But hey, in the final 7 laps of an event like this, you really just kind of do whatever you can to get to the end at this point. That's really all that matters, is making sure you were there at the end of this race. Gap now down to 0.5 of a second between Murphy and Rudolph. Now make that 0.3 of a second. Rudolph pulling down low to go around that lap car. Jason Gardner, he's just going to hang it up on the high line of the speedway, let these 3 drivers go by, as we have this 3-way battle for the 5th position here with 6 laps left to go here at Pocono. Both drivers still catching Joshua Rudolph pretty consistently here, but Bell is catching Murphy faster than Murphy can catch Rudolph. So we might see Johnny try and go for a bit of a 2-for-1 move here. Still being a little bit patient, but I imagine here in the next lap or so, we're going to see Johnny try and make something happen. Same could be said for Derek Murphy. Murphy is closing on Rudolph. But I think no matter what here happens here, once Murphy makes the move on Rudolph, Johnny Bell will just be able to follow through. But Brandon Feeney is off the speedway. Manages to bring it back on without issue, but no caution flag quite yet, as now we have Rudolph and Murphy side by side. Johnny Bell just behind here. This is going to get spicy heading down into turn number 2. Rudolph brings it down as low as he can just to make sure that he can hang on to this spot for another corner. Murphy getting a little bit wiggly. Now looking like he might try and go for the move on the high line heading down here into turn number 3. Johnny still hot on the heels for both of them, just waiting for one of the two to make a mistake that he can capitalize on. And it looks like he might just be able to pull alongside Murphy here coming down the front straightaway. Side by side, Bell makes the move on Murphy. Will we see him make the move on Rudolph here as well, heading down into turn number 1? We might just here, race fans. Sure enough, he's got the nose in there side by side with Rudolph, but not quite able to clear him. And now Murphy is getting back into the picture as well. Going to be 4 laps left to go here at Pocono. Mark Roy sailing away with a 12-second lead, but the battle rages on for the 5th position. Johnny manages to pull alongside Rudolph though, and it looks like he has the pass in the bag here. Will Murphy be able to follow through? I don't think he's quite close enough to do it here. And sure enough, Murphy, or no, that was actually Rudolph loose out of the corner. Not loose enough for Murphy to make the pass happen though. And it looks like Jason Gardner is going to make the call to come back down pit lane. He might be retiring here from tonight's event. Murphy right on the tail of Joshua Rudolph though. Johnny Bell is just sailing away here at this point. And now it's all the battle between Rudolph and Murphy right now. As Murphy and Rudolph both get loose coming out of turn number 2. Both of them going to lose a little bit of ground there. 3 laps left to go here at Pocono for Mark Royce. Everyone else just pretty much along for the ride here except for these two. Neither of them are giving up. And now Derek Murphy goes up high, tries to make the move up there. Not quite able to. Rudolph goes up high as well. And now heading down into turn number 1. Once again, we have seen almost all of our cars losing control here in turn number 1. So both of them got to be careful. They're both on used tires. Nobody wants to be the one to make a mistake. But both managed to exit turn 1 without too much difficulty. Still to make it 0.3 of a second between Rudolph and Murphy. Mark Royce going to take the 2 to go from our flagman, though. So 2 more times around this circuit before we crown our first winner of Pocono here in season number 15. Of course, this is a track that will be repeating later on in the season. We will be going to the modern day version of Pocono Speedway later on in the season. And Murphy's going to get loose out of the corner. That might be the end of this battle for him. Sure enough, Murphy down to 0.6 of a second, just like that. I think that is going to be all she wrote here in this battle. With 2 laps left to go, that 0.6 of... Oh, well, maybe not. Got it down to 0.4 of a second here in this battle, but still going to be very difficult to close that up, especially as our race leader, Mark Royce, has officially taken the white flag. So 1 more trip around the circuit for that number 44 machine before he is in the clear to take home another checkered flag here in 2024. And the 45 of Mark Kluge is down at the bottom of the speedway. He might be running out of fuel here. Side by side between Rudolph and Murphy. They are still on the lead lap, so they are only just now taking the white flag. This is not the end of their battle. However, again, Murphy gets loose and loses about 0.4 of a second here. Just behind, you can see coming out of turn number 3, Mark Royce officially will be our race winner here at Pocono with a dominant nearly 15-second lead over Garrett Streets. But we're going to keep the battle here on this action in the battle for 6th as Murphy and Rudolph throw everything they have left to throw at each other. But I don't think Murphy is going to be able to do it. It's up to 0.6 of a second now. Morelli is off the speedway right now. You can see him pull it down there onto the bottom of the track. Still 0.6 of a second between these two drivers, and I don't think there's anything that Murphy is going to be able to do here. So Joshua Rudolph will be winning that battle. Bring it home in the 6th position. Murphy back in 7th here, as Morelli gets a bit of a slide off the corner there. But nonetheless, it's going to be Mr. Mark Royce taking home the checkered flag here this evening in the number 44 Harley Davidson entry. And he's going to slide it across pit lane, or not pit lane, the start finish line here. He will be taking home the first checkered flag of his for season number 15. But it will be actually look like the first win from his as well. That's actually a little bit of a shocker to see. I was sure that he's already gotten a win here in the 2024 season, but it looks like no, he has not. I'm looking at his stats right now. It looks like his best finish is 3rd. So this actually is the first win for the driver in the Harley Davidson entry. That's it though. Don't go away, race fans. We will be back here in just a moment with some words with your top 3 finishers. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the wonderful Pocono Raceway. Welcome back to season 15 of the ASRC Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Up here in Victory Lane with me here tonight, none other than Mr. Mark Royce in that beautiful orange Harley Davidson entry. Mark, I was absolutely positive that you've already won a race here with the league, but as far as I can tell in my stat book, you haven't. So, congratulations. How are you feeling here tonight?
I feel pretty good. Thank you. Yes, that is definitely my first win here, and congrats to Feeney and Streets, man. They was a great battle with them guys. I was trying to get to pit road a little earlier, but Streets had me in turn three, so I couldn't get there.
Well, whatever you did with the pit strategy, something certainly seemed to work for you there in that car, bringing it home with a 15-second lead over the rest of the field. What'd you manage to make happen for you here tonight?
Basically, just short pitting. I did a full fuel run in practice because I have a tendency to burn off my tires in this car, and it's easy to do. So I just did a full fuel run and try to gauge. But you burn so much fuel on the straightaways that you can only make so many laps. So you were able to push this better than, say, like Dover or something like that. So I figured nobody could make it on one stop, so I'd split it up a little bit, and then strategy worked.
Sure enough, definitely a dominant performance for you here tonight. When you came into tonight's event, did you think that this would be the track where you took home your first win in the league?
No, no, these guys are pretty good, and just being able to run with them at all is a it's a it's a joy, man. These guys flag to flag, man. You can't ask for nothing better, man. These guys are pretty good, and to get a win is pretty big for me.
Sure enough, a heck of a run here tonight. And of course, later on here in this season, we're actually going to be going to Pocono again, so you might have the opportunity to go for number two. But next week, we're going to be heading over to Michigan, which is actually also a track that will be showing up twice here this season. So, how are you feeling about your chances over there?
Yeah, I don't know. Those are some very long, high-speed corners that like to burn up tires, I'm sure, and I'll probably be the one that do it. So I've got to learn to back this car down a little bit and save some, but it's tough because these guys are so fast. If you back down too much, you get left behind. So there's a happy medium somewhere, and I've found it at Pocono, but nowhere else.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, I haven't found it at all. That's why I'm in the broadcast booth and not out on the speedway with y'all. But sure enough, I won't keep you here all night. You have a win to go and celebrate. It sounds like you have some practice you might want to do before heading on over to Michigan. But for now, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Royce. Who do you want to thank for making everything happen here tonight?
I just thank everybody in this league, man, to run flag to flag at Pocono as greasy as these cars are, and nobody to spin out is that's pretty incredible. And thanks for hanging with us and doing the broadcast, man. Appreciate it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Heck of a win there. And I look forward to seeing what y'all are able to do next week over at Michigan.
Thank you.
And finishing back in position number two, Mr. Garrett Streets. It's not the first one you've gotten here in 2024, but I could not for the life of me find what track it was you won at before, so we'll just pretend it was this one. Maybe. I don't know. You got a podium finish here tonight. How are you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. Nice little bounce back. We've been gone for a couple weeks. We've had some hardware issues. We've had, I don't know, but it feels pretty good. We unloaded pretty fast in the old SM Racing Products Pontiac Grand Prix there, and didn't quite have the long run speed, but we had a pretty good race. Kept it fairly clean. Had a nice little wall tap at one point, but yeah, overall, pretty solid run. Good points night. Looking forward to Michigan.
Now, I do gotta ask, I'm gonna quote you directly here. Approximately 40 minutes before the green flag, you said, and I quote, I won't be able to make it. What changed?
Cross threading's tight, right? Isn't that what they always say? No, I had some issues with my wheelbase yesterday. I'm a desk racer, so my threaded clamp on the bottom of my wheel, I was having issues with it, and I think the threads are a little jacked. So we're gonna get out the old tap and die set one of these days and try to clean up the threads and see if we can make it a little better. But I really was looking forward to racing tonight, and I've been having the itch because I haven't done much iRacing recently. So Put it together. It's shaking around a little bit. It's not quite as sturdy as I want it to be, but it didn't move around on me and it did its job. So, yeah, we're able to get it going and show up.
Fair enough. Who knows? Maybe janky threading is the key to success. Of course, that does beg the question, though. What do you think might have had to have gone different tonight for you to be taking home that checkered flag?
I mean, we made mistakes. I probably shouldn't have ran so long on the first stint. I was hoping that if I ran long early and shortened up the second two stints, that I'd be faster on newer tires than everybody else. But um, that was not the move. I bonked off the wall at one point out of two, but overall, I mean, I made mistakes, but I just got beat. Mark was super fast. I had the speed to run with him in the short run and qualifying and everything, but the long run over the course of the race, I had nothing for him. So he whooped us, and yeah, props to him. He had a great race.
Fair enough. Still a very solid run on your end here tonight, though, walking away with a podium finish. Do you think Michigan next week, again, this will be the Legacy Michigan? Do you think that'll be a track where you can make something work for you?
Yeah, I think I look forward to Michigan. I really like the 1.5 mile, 2 mile tracks, generally speaking, but especially in the Gen 4. I just like that kind of racing a lot. High horsepower, low downforce, big track, high speeds. So I look forward to getting up to Michigan. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think we'll have a lot of good racing there. I've ran pretty good there in the past with the ARC cars and then other stuff and officials. But yeah, I think we should be a contender next week in Michigan.
Well, I like the enthusiasm. That seems like a pretty solid plan to me. Of course, before I let you go for the evening, though, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Street. So you want to thank for making things happen here tonight.
Yeah, I want to thank Jason for admin and everything. All the other people at ASRC that help out with stuff. I want to thank you for putting on another high quality broadcast. If you guys need any broadcasting services, I don't know if Aiden is looking to donate his time or sell his time, but Aiden puts on a great broadcast. I'm speaking about you in third person, but always great, always great. Enjoyed going back and watching them. Want to give a shout out to everyone that's watching. Shout out to my girlfriend Morgan for being my number one fan and head of the fan club. And then I want to thank Jeremy for all the work that he does at SM Racing Products. And then if any of you guys are looking for any quality sim racing hardware, go check out sm-racingproducts.com.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the podium finish, and I look forward to seeing you next week over Michigan.
All right, sounds good, Aiden. Thank you. Have a good one.
And finishing back position number 3, going to be none other than our one Canadian driver here this evening, Mr. Brandon Feeney. I feel like I have you in my booth at every week here so far in 2024, but just a little bit shy of getting the win. How are you feeling here tonight?
Not bad. We had a rough start to the season, but it seems to be coming together. But yeah, I wanted to try something a little off strategy and hope I got a caution at the right time, but it didn't work, and yeah, still got top 3.
Yeah, podium finish is a podium finish. Let's see. Coming into tonight in the overall 2024 championship, you are still runner-up in that right now, just behind Kevin West by about 40 points. And of course, you're second in the championship standings right now behind Benjamin Harsty here for season number 15. So if you keep putting on these podium finishes, you might just be walking away with the championship for all I know.
Yeah, it's especially weird because Kevin and Benjamin didn't show up for the last couple of races. So unfortunately, their drops are going to be used on not showing up when they could have easily had a top 11 finish instead of like the big 20 races that I kind of get to drop. But we'll see. I'm here for a good time, not for the big trophy at the end.
Fair enough. And of course, that does raise the question, though. What do you think might have had to have gone different here tonight for you to be taking home that checkered flag?
In all honesty, I was really hoping to catch a caution pretty much right after I pitted the first time, and it would have re-racked the whole field, and I would have played some strategy from there.
Well, for what it's worth, we're coming back to Pocono here in August, so everyone will have a second opportunity to reevaluate their strategies and try and put something new together, maybe. But of course, next week, Legacy Michigan. How are you feeling about that one?
I think I won Michigan a year or two ago, so I got to have a little bit of confidence, and maybe I can pull off another upset win. I don't think I've won much this year, but consistency will pay off, and maybe we'll find the checker flag soon.
Seems like a solid plan. I mean, if you keep running at the pace you've been keeping it going, I think that it is certainly on the cards at some point here in season 15.
Yeah, especially it's a tough group of guys, though. You'll have Mark fast one week, Eric fast another week. You have Gardner fast another week. Then you have Zabalski come in once in a while, be fast. The points leader that unfortunately missed tonight, he's fast almost everywhere. So you never know who's going to be fast where, but you just got to hope that you can keep up with them and pray you get the right opportunity.
Fair enough. Well, it certainly seems like it's going to be a very exciting rest of the season. But I won't keep you all here tonight, though. So the microphone is all yours, Mr. Feeney. Who you want to thank for making things happen here tonight?
I want to thank you for broadcasting and making us look good. And I got to thank these guys for hosting this league. And I hope you all check out the Feeney Call, my podcast I got going on. Releases every Friday at 1 o'clock on YouTube or Spotify. We got some big guests from Canadian racing and stuff like that. And then we're going to have in August, we're going to have Ladies of Motorsports Month up here. And yeah, and then I'm racing this Saturday up at Sauble Beach, if anyone knows where that track is.
Well, it sounds like you've got quite the loaded schedule coming up here in the next couple of weeks, so that is certainly exciting to hear. But for now, thank you for coming out here this evening, and I look forward to seeing you next week over at Michigan.
Thanks, little buddy. We'll see you soon.
You heard it here. We're first race fans. Your top three finishers here tonight. Mark Royce, first-time winner here in the league, followed by Garrett Streets and Brandon Feeney rounding out the podium here tonight. Of course, those aren't your only drivers here in tonight's event, so how about we take a look down at how things finished up for the remainder of the field. Bringing it home back and forth with a very solid running in that C3 Robotics 24. That's going to be none other than Corey Logan, with the 27 of Johnny Bell rounding out the top five here this evening. Back in sixth, going to be the 188 of Joshua Rudolph, followed by Derek Murphy in the 78, returning to his curse of being in seventh, no matter how many drivers are in the field. Back in eighth is going to be the 45 of Mark Kluge, followed by Nico Morelli, with League Administrator Jason Gardner rounding out the tail end of the field here this evening. That said, though, that's just about all we've got here tonight at the Pocono Raceway, but it is not the last time you will be seeing this track, as of course, in August, we will be coming back to the modern 2024 version of Pocono, as I mean, it's pretty much just how the schedule falls. This is going to be a little bit of a different season from what the ASRC Oval Series normally sees. We're going to Pocono twice, we're going to Michigan twice, and then we have two different road courses here in season 15 as well. So it is bound to be quite the crazy season for all of these drivers, and we might see some upset victories here in the later goings of this one. But for now, that's just about all we got here this evening. Thank you all for coming in and tuning in tonight's event. For now, we will see y'all the same day, same time, Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern for Legacy, Michigan next Monday night. Thank you for coming out, race fans, and have a good